Hey everybody, it's Kelly. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Therapist. Today I want to talk to you about families. I want to talk to you about the dynamics of families and how they play out in our lives later on. Specifically, 4 traits of dysfunctional family life that I need you to know now. As you probably know, recently there was an arrest made of Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt. Ruby Franke had a YouTube channel for a long time called 8 Passengers. Jodi Hildebrandt was a mental health counselor. They both have very strong ties to the Mormon church and have very conservative views on children. The reason for their arrest and some information about their story can be found in the description below. I don't really want to go into that a ton today. Number 1, because I think it can be triggering for some people, and number 2, because that's not the point. But as I go through the comments on this channel, I do notice a theme of people who have come from families that are not supportive, that are controlling, that do possess these red flags I'm going to talk about, and they're sort of having to untangle that in their adult years. Number 1, high levels of stress or emotional instability in the adults in the family. When you grow up in a family where the emotions of the adults are unpredictable, the child tends to be sort of tiptoeing around everything in order to not set them off or not have to deal with yelling or worse, and you're constantly sort of on guard and not able to ever really relax. This idea of not being good enough comes from the idea that the child is in charge of the parent's emotions. The child has to be good to not set the parents off and make them angry. Maybe they have to crack a joke to lighten a mood when the parents are fighting or just grumpy. Maybe they know once a parent reaches for that next beer or that next bottle of wine that they need to get out and go to their room or do homework and just be away, because you never really know what the emotions are going to be that are going to come out, right? That necessity in a child's life at a time when they should be feeling safe and exploring their own emotions and being the ones to have tantrums if they need to, or getting mad about something or slamming the door, where the kid is supposed to be doing that. When the parents are doing it instead, it sort of removes the ability of the child to do that and work through those emotions, which leads to a lack of understanding about your own emotions later in life. It leads to a high level of anxiety later in life, because you learn how to be hyper vigilant about everyone else's emotions, how to be the caretaker for everyone's emotions, how to make sure everyone is fine and safe and happy, because you know how unsafe it can be if they're not. Number 2 is lack of boundaries. I think boundaries are hard for a lot of families because either the parents were not taught it or they don't see their children as whole individual beings outside of themselves, which honestly I believe is a lot of the reason why some parents have such a hard time with their kids coming out, because they don't see them as an individual person but as an extension of themselves. And because of that, this thing that they think is unacceptable is now unacceptable in them, right? In the case of Ruby Franke, on her channel she documented a lot her complete disregard for her children's boundaries and personal space. But one of the things that she talks about that just honestly sends me through the roof, she talks about a girl with an ED. And when she talks about it, she says that the girl is manipulating the family by having that, because then she gets control and the parents have to
squash that
and
make her world very small
and let her know that she does not have any control.
Those are logic problems, because someone with an ED is actually looking for control, but it's control for self because everything around them is out of their control. Kind of like kids who grew up in this home. They didn't have any control over anything. They had no boundaries. They had no personal space and no safety. There are always going to be times in lives of families where parents do need to sort of breach those boundaries when safety is concerned, because we want people to be safe and to have a chance to make better choices the next day. That aside, this idea that kids don't get privacy, that I'll take the door off of my kid's room if they're not doing their homework when they're supposed to, or going in and reading your kid's journal, those kind of things that are typically places for kids to play out their personalities and to process their emotions. If they know their parents are going to read it, they're not going to be honestly processing their emotions. Their room should be a place where they're expressing their identity and where they're able to keep it within reason how they want to keep it. And so taking a door off it or shaming a kid because it's not clean the way you want it to be clean isn't about raising an individual. That's about how the parent feels. And again, when you bring it back to Ruby Franke, she says it's her house and the kids don't have anything and they don't have any rights and it's all hers and she can take it away anytime she wants to. I wouldn't even be bringing that up except for the fact that she had so many followers and there are so many people out there that believe this in their families. These are flags. These are problems. Kids need space to be individuals. When they become teenagers, they need space that they can claim as their own and be able to start figuring out who they are. If their biggest role is to be a representative of their parent, how are they ever supposed to figure out who they are as individuals? This goes into our next one, which is perfection. When parents expect perfect grades, perfect behavior, perfect manners from kids and teens, that puts an unrealistic expectation of performance on someone and cultivates an understanding in them that performance and perfection equals worthiness of love. Even the statement,
just do the best you can, that's all we ask,
is a misleading and problematic statement. When you tell a kid, do the best you can, and then I'll be proud of you, you're telling them you're not proud of them if they don't do the best they can, and they are never gonna do the best they can on every single thing. That's not an option. That's not human nature, and not a single person can tell me you've walked out there every single day of your life and done your best every single day. Because if you're doing that, you are trying to get love and get acceptance by being the best, by doing the best, which would make me think probably some of these flags existed in your family. This idea of being perfect and presenting perfection. Don't fight in public, fight in the house. Be nice to each other when other people are around so everyone thinks that we're the perfect family. That's again about the parents' pride and not about the kids' needs. The idea that you can't have emotions or you can't have normal life issues if other people are around leads to people not knowing how to emotionally connect with other people because they don't know how to be emotionally vulnerable around people because that's always been dangerous, right?
Don't let someone know who you are.
Don't let someone know who the family is as a whole.
Keep that inside.
Well, sure. And then you grow up and you get out there and you're like, I got to keep messiness inside. I got to keep pain inside. I'm not going to show that to anybody. And then when you need them, people aren't there because you never connected with them in the first place because you didn't know how. That leads me to our last one, which is shame. I talk about shame a lot. I don't always name it as shame. And I think when you say the word shame, a lot of people shut their ears off. In fact, I'm going to go in and look at what my viewership dropped to when I brought this one up. Shame goes so deep that a lot of people are afraid to talk about it. When you feel shame, especially when you feel shame about being who you are, the way that creeps into every area of your life is insidious. This idea that you should be ashamed means you should hide. Right? And then we're back to where we were before, where you don't know how to connect to anybody because that shame goes so deep, that shame in who you are as a person, that something about you is inherently unacceptable, so you hide it from people. And this is one of the things that those in the LGBTQIA plus community deal with on a regular basis. When you or what you care about is constantly shamed and disregarded by those who are supposed to be caring for you and about you, that does something to your understanding of your worth. That's going to do something pretty big to your understanding of your value to other people. That shame also keeps you tied to and responsible for the people who instilled it in the first place. Because they're the only ones who can take that away. When your family is instilling shame in you, when they're telling you you're not good enough, you should be ashamed of who you are is, not natural, right? When they're instilling that in you, it feels somewhere on some deeper level that they are the only ones who can take that away. And when they're unwilling or unable to do that, you then spend a great deal of your life giving to others in hopes that you will be good enough for them to want to keep in their lives. So you'll drop things that you know are important to you, but they're not that important to that person. So you go rushing to them and not addressing any of your needs because out of your shame, out of your lack of understanding of who you are, out of your lack of autonomy and respect for yourself and your own boundaries, you don't set boundaries with anyone else. You don't deal with boundaries anywhere. Because if you put a boundary up, someone might turn away. And if they turn away, then the things that your family shamed you about were right. I could do an entire series on shame. I don't know how many people would actually watch it. Because that touches something so deep into our core and into who we are and understand ourselves to be, that to untangle that, we have to shine a light into it And a lot of people just aren't ready for that. These are just 4 of the flags that families exhibit that lead to hypersensitive, anxious, depressed, boundaryless adults. This has only been 4 flags. That's it. There are so many ways that our family of origin really is connected to the story that we tell ourselves about ourselves as adults. To those of you for whom this struck a chord, I want you to understand something. You deserved in your childhood to have families that didn't do these things. And I don't know why your parents weren't capable of not doing these things. I do know, though, that as adults, we do have resources and opportunities to relearn those things in ourselves. And you're worth the work that it takes to do that. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you all next time. And until then, take care of yourselves and each other.